think one of the tragedies of how we analyze rights in this country is that we tend to read the right backwards. That is, we start from the limitation. So even before we give ourselves time to fully appreciate the breadth of the right and the scope, people are already invoking the limitation to negate the right. My suggestion is that we spend a little more time with the right to fully appreciate, again, its scope, its history, and its purpose. Because if you do that, you give yourself a more broader view to understand how you can narrowly constitute and understand limitations to right. Now, let us not forget that in this country, power has been more frequently abused as opposed to rights. And yet those who call on power to account and those who are calling for rights to be respected are often those who are more opposed when they speak up. And that's the thing, the tragedy of democracy, you say, is that it wipes out the memory of the past from our collective memories, and the evils that we attempt to guard against become decontextualized. We forget the reason why this particular provision was put in it for the first place. So the question we need to ask ourselves is, why is this bill bringing back authorization at this particular time? You know, and I'm sure there are certain things about the bill that is useful, like for instance, the need to clarify and define the roles of the two regulatory bodies of the sector, the National Media Commission and the National Communications Authority. But I think this is where the law should have ended. Because so many of the things contained in the law read like a playlist from the horrible 80s and 70s and 80s. There's so many things in the law that look so innocuous on their face that have been used previously. Example, we've used the same language and the same paternalistic logic to depress rights in the country. For instance, the memorandum to the bill says the international best practice of using program content as a key criteria for the authorization and regulation of broadcasting services in the public interest is absent from our current legislation. And I'm wondering this is exactly what the Constitution is preventing us from to do. That we do not license or authorize on the basis of program content, because it's a shortcut to censor and oppress. Our Constitution speaks exactly and specifically to our history. We cannot pick examples from the US, UK, and others which do not have that historical and political context in the country. The bill is also talking about the need to use the media space to instill a sense of patriotism. And